Welcome to Overland Weekly, the show that explores the heart of the overlanding and off-road community, capturing the people, friendships, and unique experiences that unite our adventures.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Overland Weekly, this is episode number 15. Looks a little bit different. There's no digital backdrop, no Zoom filters tonight. We are live and in person, as you may notice. Nate Pickel from Dirt Lifestyle, all the way from Tacoma, Washington, correct?
Yep.
Has joined us here. We are in Nashville, Tennessee today, thanks to Renaissance Marketing Group for letting us use their space. We had to brand it a little bit our own. You guys can check them out online. But
I think you guys did great.
I think we did good. Yeah. So I had been kind of playing tag with Nate, trying to get this interview set up for a little while. And if you follow his channel, you know he is quite a busy man.
I try to be.
And then decided to move and build a new shop in addition to all his projects and vehicle builds going on. So we didn't think it was going to work out, and then he messaged me a couple of weeks ago and was like, hey, weren't you in Tennessee? I'm coming that way. Let's just meet up and do this. So thanks, man. Here we are.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of off-road podcasts. I prefer to do them in person if I can. You know, there's like something lost over Zoom.
100%.
So it's nice to be able to, and that's why I was like, dude, I'm coming there. I should hit these guys up.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. If you haven't followed Nate's story as it's kind of evolved over the past over 4 years now on YouTube, right?
Yeah, 5.
5, really? Yeah. But this man had a good job as a commercial plumber,
Yep.
right? Good union gig.
Yep.
I would assume a steady paycheck and just kind of everything organized. And then you decided that you were going to walk away from that for this kind of unpredictable lifestyle of being a content creator and YouTuber. Yeah, so here we are 5 years later.
Yeah.
Did you make the right call?
I mean, my wife's very happy that I made that call. Construction's tough. You're out of your house a lot of hours every day and long commutes and all that stuff. So I'm a better dad when I'm at home than I am if I'm on the road. So, you know, and a better husband. So she's happy. I'm happy. Even my dog's happy.
Was there a point, did you have some type of goal or a point that you had to reach when you to say, okay, I'm hanging that up and we are 100% hammering down on the YouTube thing?
So the way it all played out is in 2017, I got in a very serious car accident. I was rear-ended by a semi-truck when I was like at a standstill, and it was like, they were going like 60 or 70. And I was in a work van, totaled the van, I had a brain injury.
Man.
It was brutal. I was going to a speech therapist for a couple of years. You know, my body was messed. It sucked. And after that whole time, I mean, I was going to weekly doctor visits for that whole 2 years and massage and all the speech therapy. And my primary doctor was like, you're done with construction. It's like, I know you don't think you are, but you're done with construction. He said he'd seen this happen plenty of times to people my age, and you don't like come back fully. And then 10 years later, everybody, you know, you're like limping as you're walking around, you know,
Sure.
15 years later, you're like crouched down. He's like, you just can't do a physical job anymore. So he was trying to get me to become a plumbing inspector, which was very tempting, but it all just, life is so interesting in the way that things happen. So I was, because of the brain injury, I took 2 weeks off. I went back to work, and then I had an incident at work where I was just speaking gibberish and I didn't even know it. And so they took me to, they thought I had a stroke. So they took me to like Harborview, which is like the big place in Seattle. I keep looking at Joey over there. There's another person here, and I'm talking to them and you guys. Anyway, so they put this, like, it was a pretty wild experience because I didn't even realize that to me it all just, I was just talking, and to the people around me, like, dude, you need to sit down.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was
That's
just
scary,
like
though, right?
Slurred. Yeah. And then once they said that, I could kind of hear what I sounded like. And so after that, I took like 3 or 4 months off work. They were like, my doctor was like, stay home. You have a serious brain injury. There's only so much they can measure. They're just like, you got to sleep in every day. You've got to relax. You can't go. Like, I was running jobs. I was a foreman. It's really stressful. And so that's what I did. I stayed home. I was in the middle of doing a diesel swap on my Jeep TJ, and we had plans. I already had time off and everything to go down to Easter Jeep Safari in March. And so I ended up having enough time to finish the Jeep while I was relaxing and sleeping in and getting better. And so we took it down to Easter Jeep Safari, and a buddy of mine was watching this YouTube channel called Bleepin' Jeep. And he was like, dude, they're doing like a fan ride down in Easter Jeep Safari. You should totally go down and like meet those guys. And I had just started watching YouTube. Like, I had heard, I mean, we'd all had heard of YouTube.
Where had you been the 10 years prior to that?
Dude, I know. But I wasn't really on social media. I wasn't, I was just a dude who built stuff in his garage. And my friends I had multiple people tell me, because I would build different things. They'd be like, you got to start a YouTube channel. And I'd be like, I don't even watch YouTube, And so anyway, I went down to Easter Jeep Safari. I had the diesel swap TJ. I did the fan ride with the Bleepin' Jeep guys. And then Matt saw that I was filming myself, and he's like, "Are you gonna make a video out of that?" And I was like, "I mean, I've always filmed me and my buddies. I've got footage of us in like 2005, 2006, just tearing it up, man."
Right.
And I had never edited anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I just always had a camera. I like to film us going through a mud hole or whatever we're doing, or climbing big rocks. And then like once a year, we drink beer and just watch all these clips, right? And so I told Matt, I was like, I don't have plans of like making a video, but I film everything we do. And he's like, well, or I should say it in Matt voice. Well, if you, he said, if I could edit it and send it to him and he likes it, then he'll pay me for it. Basically, it's like, I could bring you on as like a content creator of the channel. And I was like, in my head, I'm just like, man, that'd be super cool. I had some friends that were going to start a YouTube channel called Muddy Beards, and we were all going to do it together. And so I called and told them, and they're like, well, we'll still do Muddy Beards, but you should take this opportunity. So I edited my first video and sent it to Matt. Didn't get a whole lot of feedback feedback from him. And then it was on Bleepin' Jeep, and I was like, oh, sweet. So my goal was like, if I could make any income from this just to like buy some of these expensive ass parts you put on these things, then I win. You know what I mean?
So
probably within a month.
wow.
Yeah, I always, and then during that year, it was just a little under a year that I was making content for Bleepin' Jeep. I mean, I was making a video a week, sometimes 2 videos a week, plus doing a full-time job as a plumber. And I've just always been a hard worker, and I fell in love with it. I had no idea I was going to like video editing or video production or any of it, but like, it totally changed. Like, I love building vehicles, but I fell in love with the storytelling aspect of it. And so then my YouTube feed just started being like photography channels and like all this other stuff that was super inspiring to me. Like, I've always loved documentaries. And so a lot of that just kind of started inspiring me. And I got to a point where I just had a conversation with Matt. I was like, dude, I think I just want to do my own thing. Like, there was no drama behind the scenes. There's no big fight. There's nothing like that. I just called him. I was like, I've been thinking about it. I like on my way home from work, and I just feel like I'm not a Bleepin' Jeep guy. Like, I just want to like be my own guy. And
so you hear that, folks? There was no drama, so we can put that to bed.
It felt weird afterwards. This is just life. There's when you terminate some form of relationship, it always feels like there's a breakup of some kind.
Yeah.
But when we'd see each other, it was highs and handshakes, like, you know what I mean? And now it's been 5 years, so it's like, I don't think that there's any weirdness at all anymore. But yeah, so I told him, I was like, and I was working so hard to do all the content, and the way it was structured is like, he would get 50% of the revenue from your video, and you would get. And so,
because he had, do you remember how many subscribers he had at that point?
Yeah, when I started, it actually, people were into the stuff I was doing. So, like, when I started there, it was at like 200,000 subscribers. And then by the time I left, it was really close to 300 or something like that.
Yeah.
And, but it was so much work. And I told him, like, I don't like that I don't own any of, like, I'm putting so much effort into these and I don't own any of it, you know, which was what the agreement was. Like, I wasn't complaining. It was just, I wanted to figure out a way to do this just for me. If I'm going to work this hard, even if I make less money, I at least want to own it. And so I told him, I'm not sure when we're going to do another channel, but I'm, you know, this is what my goal is. And so I'm leaving basically. And so my wife and I had a big talk and she was like, you know, camera off.
It's plugged in.
So I had a big talk with the wife and she's like, we should definitely start another channel like soon. Actually, the first name that I wanted to use for the channel was Off-Road Elements. I thought it was a cool name. And then I'd like use like periodic table things, and I'm kind of a dork. And I looked it up on thought about the whole progression. Like, I graduate high school, I'm way into camping and rock climbing and all this stuff. So I get my first 4x4 like right when I graduate. I was always been a workaholic, so I was working two part-time jobs in high school plus going to school, 55 hours a week, and I was saving because I was driving a 78 Cut Supreme, which was pretty sweet, but not a great off-roader. So as soon as I graduated high school,
E6 305. What was in the Cutlass?
305.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so I as soon as I graduated, sold the Cutlass Supreme, bought a 87 tails into the name of the channel. It was like I got a 4x4 so I could start camping and rock climbing deeper. And what it ended up being is it just like turned into a whole different lifestyle. Like, I became so much more passionate about all the other stuff surrounding just the off-road culture and like finding like the best mods and learn. And so I traded the S10 Blazer for a K5 Blazer because when I was a kid, my stepdad had a K5 Blazer and I thought it was like the most badass truck of all time. Like,
and at that point, they were still readily available and affordable.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Now, come on.
Yeah, forget about it. So I traded it straight across from my buddy who needed a commuter, so he got the little Blazer and I got the big one. And my dad kind of hated it, and he worked at a car dealer, and so but he asked me, he's like, what do you really want? Like, I know you like the K5, and I was like, I don't know, like, I love the K5, but I've always wanted a Jeep. Like, if I was going to get like a wheeler, I would get a Jeep. And so then this Jeep rolls in, 2002 Jeep T. He's like, we're going to like make your trade-in look like it's more than it is, and like either work the numbers. And my dad totally swindled me into this Jeep, and that's the Jeep that I have still. But anyway, so it was like the whole Dirt Lifestyle name came from like, I got a Jeep once and it completely like transformed my life, you know, or really an S10 Blazer once. And so my whole lifestyle worked around that because I would just like work. I'm like, all right, next paycheck, I'll be able to get sliders. And then the paycheck out, you know, and then it's like, and then eventually like, okay, I'm going to save up and get a tow rig, and you're searching for tow rigs. And then I got a friggin' RV, and then I get a shop, and it's all because it's a whole different lifestyle, all because I got a 4x4.
So it all comes from the S10 Blazer, folks.
It really does.
That's where it really comes from.
Totally.
Now, what was the specs on the Blazer? Because there's
the mighty 2.8.
Was it the 2.8?
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh, I'm laughing because Joey's here with us. Joey, what year was your?
It was an 85 S10 2.8.
Yeah.
This was TBI 2.8 5-speed manual. This was my first.
Oh, the manual.
First manual. Yeah. I prefer. I love wheel and manual. I prefer manuals. Not very common these days.
That's an interesting opinion nowadays. Yeah,
I know, it's crazy. When I first started wheeling, everybody I knew wheeled a manual up there. It was all, Samurais and CJs and Toyotas. It's like they're all like just little light manual vehicles. And but now, I mean, once the JK came out, it just completely changed the car, like off-road culture completely. And, people started wanting like comfort and all that other weird stuff whenever you go off-road. So, but
I mean, I am a guy that wheels a LX 570 Lexus. So yeah, I get the.
Was that yours out there? Oh no, that
Joey's is the 100 series.
There's a 100 series. That's right.
Mine's at the house gutted right now from prior week's activities.
I've had to do that. So anyway, that's a long way around. That's the whole origin story. And So then I started making my own videos. It grew really quickly, and like within 6 months, my wife and I had a talk, and I was like, "Do you think could I just do this?" And my wife was all on board. She was like, I had all this doubt. She had zero doubt. She's like, if you were doing this full time, we could make it work. And the reason being, I was making really good money as a foreman plumber. Out your income. It's like, oh, I make this much money. That means I need this much house. It's like all my friends that I was working with were union, are making the same amount of money. And they're like asking me for money for lunch, And it's like, maybe you should get rid of like the brand new tow truck and like it
and
like
your $800 a month payment. Yeah.
And that's, everything I bought had like 200,000+ miles on it. And, we were really conservative. So because our bills were low and because we were responsible for all that time, we knew we had a buffer. And because I'm an established journeyman plumber with a license and a great resume, and is still a union member, I still pay my dues. It was like, I have an amazing plan B. I've already got this whole other plan B established and proven. So let's take a leap of faith. I left my job before we even made a year on YouTube and just started working hard as hell for me instead of somebody else. And then
once you actually started watching YouTube, once you caught up with everybody else.
Sorry, people. Mike.
It's you said you like to watch a lot of documentaries, and that's interesting because I think your videos, and you've talked about this in the past, have very much of a storytelling narrative to them, and I think that's intentional. And it's almost like each build is like a little mini documentary.
That's how I want it to feel.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It's I go through phases. I love documentaries. I just love learning about different parts of the world. I love learning about the good, the bad. I'm a huge history buff. I listen to history podcasts. So documentaries is just like so right up my alley. And then I would say that my influences are documentaries and then Ian's show, Extreme 4x4. Because when I was wheeling in the early days, there was not really anything that you could point to for like tutorials other than like magazines. So we'd buy up 4x4 magazines and you'd get different ideas. And then when Extreme 4x4 came out, like me and my roommates, like Sunday morning, Spike TV, we were all in. We're like watching Stacy David and watching,
Trucks and Gears and
all of it, dude. Yeah. So we all, my whole crew, we all have Stacy David impressions. Just, I know what you're thinking. Anyway, but and so Ian was a really big inspiration in the fact that it was like he was doing what I wanted to do, like all the fab stuff, and like I was able to like watch stuff and get inspired. And then whenever I started this YouTube thing, it just like kind of came out. I realized like 1 year in, I was like, I'm kind of doing this like he does, and which is a good thing. And
it's a proven model.
Yeah, totally. Because like when I first started making a YouTube video, it wasn't like I didn't know I was going to teach in it. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, do I just review what? I mean, like, I don't know. I had no plan. I was just like, I'm just going to turn on the camera, which is so awkward at the beginning. You're just like looking at a black hole in an empty shop and you're just talking to nobody, But once you get over yourself, it's not a big deal. But I had no plan, and then it's just like my inner Ian Johnson just kind of came out, and I just started like showing and talking about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and then it just kind of I think between that and me being a journeyman plumber, it was like the education side, like me teaching, like kind of became the direction.
So there is some overlap from your plumbing career, especially once you were a foreman, into what you're doing now from that education standpoint.
Yep. Yeah, it was always important to me to educate apprentices. I constantly had apprentices thanking me because I was in plumbing early enough. It was still kind of old. I doubt it's like this now, but it was like really brutal. Like when you're an apprentice, you get treated like crap. So brutal. I had a side story to my side story, but I remember being in a crawl space when I was like a first year apprentice, and my journeyman pouring a can of ABS glue like at the entrance of the crawl space and like lighting it on fire and just being like, load up, Pickel, we gotta go. It was just like a lot of that, just a lot of hazing. And a lot of journeymen just want to keep you on the shovel and on drill, like doing all the grunt work. And so whenever I had apprentices, I didn't want to do that. I always wanted to like show them why, talk about plumbing code. I'd even open up the book and be like, see, and get them used to thinking like a plumber instead of like a laborer. And so that totally translated over to YouTube.
Yeah. I think another thing, in addition to the education, one thing you've done, whether you've intentionally done it or not, is you show your mistakes along the way, right? Whatever it may be. And there's a particular episode, not just mistakes in the shop or when you're fabbing something, but you remember that episode where you're driving the Kodiak on your way to SEMA and you're like, oh, that's a sweet-ass spot. I'm going to pull over here and get a picture of this. And you say it on camera like, this is a bad idea.
Dude.
Tell people what happened.
Trust your gut, man. I knew that that said, it could have been worse. So I'm on my way to SEMA. It was such a slog. Like, we were pushing so hard in order to get the Samurai to a point where we could winch it onto the back of the Kodiak so I could have it at the power stop brake booth. And we make the deadline. I'm on my way down. Truck's working fine. I'm just like, sweet, we're doing it. I stay the night in the back of the truck in Oregon, wake up, cruising through Nevada, and maybe a third of the way down Nevada, I literally just saw a sign that said the loneliest highway in America. I mean, there's no one around. Which, I mean, foreshadowing. I mean, come on. Like, it's just ridiculous. And like, so I see this little like job site on the side of the highway, and there's no one there. They were just moving dirt around and putting drains underneath the street and stuff. And so I was like, I want a big heavy duty Kodiak 4x4, and I need a thumbnail for this video that I'm in the middle of filming. I'm going to pull off real quick, and I wasn't going to flex it out, but I was just going to kind of nose the front of the Kodiak like up on like a little dirt berm with like the Samurai in the back and the mountains in the back. It was gorgeous. And as soon as I pull off and I put it in 4-wheel drive, something told me, it was just like, dude, you're so exposed. I mean, I had like no service, and there's no one on the road. I mean, I'm just in the middle of nowhere by myself. And I'm like, dude, it's the most heavy duty truck you've ever owned. Like, it's ridiculous. Everything is so oversized. There's the whole point of buying a Kodiak. So put it in 4WD, go down the little bank, and then as soon as it starts to go up the dirt berm, I've got no rear. Oh no, I hear like a sound, like a grinding sound. And I was like, oh, is that transfer case? Like, what is that? And I get underneath there and look, everything was fine. And then long story short, the rear and front drive shafts were just like spinning in the pinions. And
that's what, a Dana 110?
Dana 110 rear, now a Dana 130. The front is a Dana Super 70. They're ridiculous. They're rare too. Like, they're crazy huge, crazy overbuilt. There's like one gear set you can buy for the Dana Super 70. They only make it a 513. That's like how rare it is. So it's like they made it probably for just Kodiaks. They probably don't even use it in anything else. So I kicking myself, and I go walk around, and I just find this little like square that if I stand on it, I have enough service to like kind of make a phone call, and then like I screenshot of my location and post it on social media. And so the rear drive shaft spinning into, like, I'm literally watching a drive shaft spin going into a pinion and nothing is happening, like as if you sheared a pinion. And so I was like, it's the only thing that makes sense. What was so weird is like, I couldn't imagine shearing both front and rear pinions from idling. Like it,
right.
It's not like, oh, it's because of all that torque that you weren't even in, you know what I mean? And the front was totally my fault. It had, under the hubcaps, it had selectable hubs in the front. So I had no idea.
But this was how many hours later you figured that out?
Oh, many hours. Yeah, because I was looking through so many forums and just trying to figure out, like, has anyone else had this problem? And then I saw a thing and like I can't remember. I saw something that triggered in my head. I was like, maybe I should peel back those hubcaps and just see. And so I did. And sure enough, underneath the hubcaps, there were hub selectors. But that's not why it fell apart. The rear, all of the ring gear bolts had slowly been working out over time, and there was clearly only one or two holding it in place. And as soon as I got down in that dirt hole, it just broke the last two bolts. And then the rear, like, the carrier was not spinning because the ring gear was just spinning on the carrier. So, like, I mean, it's just crazy. I've seen people, I've seen this happen to people who get aftermarket ring and pinions installed and by somebody who's not like super professional, you know, they don't use like red Loctite and stuff. But I could not imagine a truck this big that would be a problem. Turns out, after a bunch of research, the Dana 110s, it's really common for those to back out.
Really?
Yeah. And it was really hard to find the parts I needed. But I found a place that like cannibalizes Kodiaks and all these like medium duty diesels in California. And after doing a bunch of research, the Dana 130 center section drops into the Dana 110 housing. And so that's what I did. I bought a Dana 130 center section and dropped it in there, and then had to upgrade to bigger. The new axle shafts that are in there are ridiculous. The old ones were huge. Now the new ones are just laughable. So anyway, it's a Dana 130 now, just because the housing's the same across all of them, which is also very strange.
So needless to say, those bolts are Loctited in there this time.
I have no idea. I looked at it and I read online that it does not have the same problem. I was like, I'm not touching any of this.
Okay.
Yeah, I just cleaned it up. I made sure all the bearings look good, dropped it in, and it's been that way ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you ended up making it into SEMA on front wheel drive then, right?
No. I called Matt from Matt's Off-Road Recovery. He came and got me at midnight from Utah, and then he drove me to his place in San Hollow. We drove all night. We got to his house at 6:30 in the morning, and we slept for just like a couple hours, and then he had one of his employees haul me out to SEMA, drop me off, and then in front wheel drive, I drove like 2 miles
That's the part I remember.
around the corner, and I made the cutoff to drop your vehicle off by like an hour, and otherwise it'd been everything, all that for nothing, you know. So the rest of the week was figuring out how to fix my truck and like also just exhaling because it had been such a brutal like 6 weeks before that, you know, but. Everything, you know, I don't know if they say bad things happen in threes. I don't know what 3 things happened, but that did seem to be the last bad thing. Because then we made it home, no problem. You know, it was all good, but it was just a brutal couple of days.
Nate, you've done multiple types of and brands of vehicles. I mean, you're kind of vehicle or brand agnostic, I should say.
Definitely.
Yeah. Is there anything that's like been in the back of your mind, but you've always been hesitant to pull the trigger on building?
There's not like any projects that I'm hesitant for any other reason than just like the amount of time I have. Like I have a lot of people have like bucket list things they want to do. I kind of have like a personal like build bucket list.
Okay.
And it's not that I want to own everything. It's just I want to own everything like once. You know, like the Land Cruiser 80 series, like that was a bucket list vehicle for me. I wanted to build it, I wanted to use it, I wanted to enjoy it, and then decide if it was going to be like permanent in the fleet. And I loved it, but it just didn't need to be permanent. Like I didn't love it so much that I had to have it forever or anything like that. So it was like, all right, I'll sell this one and move on to the next thing, and I'll try other vehicles.
A lot of we're Toyota guys, and there was a lot of talk when that was sold. Yeah, he hates Toyotas. You know, like how could you? You know, it's an 80 series. It's perfect. Why would he sell that?
I don't know why everybody has to like. There's nothing to read into it. I just love the whole process of finding something cool for a good deal, building it out, using it, and then keeping it if I want to or not. And like right now, I've got this little Land Rover that I just started work on, and it's super cool, but I don't think it's going to be like a permanent vehicle. Like my TJ, permanent. The Tacoma, probably not even permanent, but I could totally see myself owning it for like 10 more years. I mean, it's really good at everything except for being comfortable and getting good gas mileage. But outside of that, it's good at everything else.
Do you pay attention to what other folks are building now, specifically on YouTube? Do you have time to even pay attention?
Not really. To be honest, I don't watch a lot of off-road YouTube. I'm a YouTube junkie. I love YouTube, but it's like it's my interests. Yeah, my interests are so all over the place, man. I mean, it's science, history, politics, you know, just I've got all this stuff that I'm way into. Outdoor. Right now, I just became obsessed with this dude who's doing a homestead in Alaska, up in Canada. And just watching him build the cabin. I go through hunting phases where I just get obsessed with watching people hunt or fish. There's this channel I was watching where this dude had this like really small plane I think he was in Canada too, and he would just fly over all this land. It was like there's no other way in, and then he'd land in. It was like a float plane, and he'd like land in the middle of nowhere, and he'd just fish these like rivers and streams and lakes that no one can.
Wow.
It's just so cool. So, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So you're like, honey, we need a float plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm not that wild with it, but yeah. So I do see what other people are building because sometimes stuff will just pop into my feed, or I'll see it on Instagram or whatever, or like, you know, I've got friends in the industry that I just kind of keep tabs on and see what they're up to. But I'm kind of in my own. I'm not like near any other like off-road channels like what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in my own little corner of the country. I kind of keep to myself. You know, if you were in San Hollow, I mean, you have access to like all the biggest off-road. So like they kind of have their own thing going on. I kind of have my own thing going on, and you know, we see each other and hang out at events and stuff. But I'm real focused on just being an outdoorsman and being a dad, being a husband, and all that kind of stuff. Plus, I want to open up an off-road shop. So we've been talking about that forever, and now that we finally moved, we're going to hopefully do that sooner than later. So I'm very focused on that.
So you want to do it like a full-service shop, or?
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this because I'm not one that wants to borrow a bunch of money to do like a new business. I want to use my own, and I don't like the idea of investors. I don't want to have any. You know, I don't want to lose anybody else's money too. So this is going to be a stepping stone thing.
Sure.
So I think what we're going to do first is I want to do a local off-road repair company because I can do that without getting commercial space. So I want to build, right now I'm working on a Jeep truck that's going to be like the first vehicle that we're going to try this with. And all winter throughout the Cascades, people are breaking in the snow. They're getting stuck in the snow, way up in the mountains.
Okay.
And it's like a whole thing to go for them to get unstuck. So what I think is I think we're going to start the business in order to get the seed money for the off-road shop by doing off-road repair and off-road recovery. So I'm going to set this thing up with a generator, like a real welder, not like a stick welder, but like I want to be able to go out there and re-weld somebody's brackets back on and like paint it. And I mean, like they're in a shop, but do it on the trail. So instead of me having to yard them all the way back out, they could potentially just drive out because we did a professional fix. So that's my little business idea, and I think that we're going to use that, and if that is successful enough, then we can use that as seed money to then open up Dirt Lifestyle and Performance Recovery, Dirt Lifestyle Performance and Recovery, which is going to be like a full service shop where I could start to hire more employees, and I want to pay the highest in the area, so we'll probably be the most expensive in the area, but I mean, I want to do high quality work for people who want to find it. Every week I'm getting emails, I'm getting DMs, I'm getting tons of people like, hey, I'll ship you my vehicle. I want you to build it for me, all that kind of stuff. I'm just not set up to do that yet, but that's the long-term goal, is to have a shop where, and I want to hire a videographer and people who could just film me and the crew just having fun, building cool shit, and then people just tune in and see what we're up to every week. Yeah, or Nate did break all this stuff and learned how to not do that, and then he could help me not do that.
Well, and that's, but that gives you, I'm assuming, especially the recovery aspect of it, gives you another avenue for content creation.
Yeah, I want to do more content. It's just right now I'm like skeleton crew, man.
Sure.
I'm doing it all. It's so, at least I have help. I've got Nick, my coworker.
Yep.
But like, I say coworker now. It's weird when you call someone your employee. Like, I don't think I'm like above him or something, so I just say coworker. So my coworker Nick, he helps a lot. But like, the ultimate goal is that I can hand off video at least to someone else, to where I'm just doing, I'm organizing everything in the shop. I'm building stuff in like a commercial shop with a bunch of cool people to work with, and then maybe I do the editing still, or if someone do the rough edit. I don't know how it's going to work yet, but I just see the goal in my mind has been, I want to not just build my stuff, but I want to build other people's stuff and make cool video on it. And then like, especially longer builds, have them fly up when it's all done, and then we take them out, and you just can put a bow on the story of like, we got this old international scout that was a POS, and here we are 3 months later, and we're tearing up trails with the owner. Like, I just think that would be really fun to do. And I know for sure, like Discovery and these different networks are always looking for guys like me to do a show like that for them. But like, I don't want producers. I want to be in charge of the whole thing. I want to make sure it's authentic content. You really see what's happening. I don't want someone to throw a wrench because they're fake mad, And so like, to me, like the utopia Nate future is being able to have my own shop, being able to go do recoveries when I want. If I think they're interesting, I'll film them. And just have this flexibility of making fun content with cool people and building cool rigs, No,
totally, yeah. We've all, over the last decade, we've seen enough fabricated, Orange County chopper style drama.
That's the one everyone thinks of too, man.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? Yeah. But, well, if you don't mind, let's unpack kind of the economics of doing it yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Because one thing, over the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, when you had these big networks and cable companies that were funding these productions, I just think about even the cost of getting the vehicle. Generally, that was on the production company to, okay, you need to go buy this international. We're going to pay to buy it. Now, if you're starting a new project, that's out of Nate's pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Presuming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, it kind of goes back like with that Land Cruiser. Are you thinking about, when you make a purchase on a new project, are you thinking about reselling or what the exit for that vehicle is? Do you have to factor all that in?
You do. So like, there's certain vehicles I couldn't buy and flip. Like Land Rover Discoveries, I love my Land Rover Discovery too. It's awesome, but it's not one you can make any money flipping. Whereas like the Land Cruiser 80, I got it for a good deal. I got it. It was like, I'll get opportunities and the stars will align, and like the Onyx build challenge was perfect. Like I wanted to do an 80 series build just because, from like a business standpoint, it's smart, I think, to be able to like reach a new audience, people who maybe never heard of the channel that have 80 series that'd be interested in seeing a build. And it's one that I personally really wanted to do. And then when a company comes to you and said, hey, we want you to do this build challenge, we'll give you the money to buy the vehicle. And so it's like, oh, this works out perfect. I can get what I want. I can give people what they want, and the company's going to pay for it. Stars aligned. Yes, let's do it. And so that said, though, I chose an 80 series because it's one of those vehicles that if you get it for a good deal, you put a little bit of money, a little bit of elbow grease into it, you can get your money back out of it. There are certain vehicles you can never get your money back out of.
He's got one he's in the process of flipping right now. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this Land Rover, this little old school Land Rover series that I just bought that I'm building out, that's one of those vehicles that I know I got cheap enough and I see them for sale expensive enough that if I put the dirt lifestyle flair on this thing, go have a bunch of fun with it, make some good content, and if I decide one day that I want to let it go, I'll be able to get my money back out of it.
Okay.
It's like, I'm not trying to make, like my 80 series, I could have sold that for way more money than I did. I sold it for,
you ask a very fair price.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was for a number of reasons. I already made, because of the way that I did like the business side, it was basically bought by somebody else. I built it. I got my use out of it. I got my personal enjoyment out of it. And so I don't have to make a bunch of money on it. And two, I don't ever want someone to think that I'm ripping them off no matter what. So everything I sell in the future is going to be, unless it's at an auction and I have no control over it or something, let's just say like way down the road.
Right.
I want to always have people think that like they got a fair deal or a good deal, And the guy that owns it loves it. I mean, I put all the money in all the right places in that thing. It's super reliable. He drives around the country, wheels the crap out of it. Like 80
I follow him on Instagram or YouTube. One of them, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and he loves that thing. So everybody's happy. But yeah, so as far as like, there might be projects that I'll buy that I'm just so obsessed with. I know that I'll never sell it and I don't care. Like, but sure. Then there's your average project for me is not that way though. Everything could be bought and sold. The only things that I'm going to keep forever right now is my TJ. This is my first like real 4x4. I learned so much, these projects are also like, it's an educator. It's like, it's a teacher. So I've learned so much and had so many great experiences in my TJ that it's just, I don't know what the next incarnation.
There you go.
Thank you. So I'm a little tired. Incarnation of the TJ will be, but it'll always be in my fleet no matter what. My kids will inherit that one.
Cool.
Samurai probably the same way. I've got like a deep emotional attachment to that because it inspired me back in the day watching Ian build it.
I see.
And then I got it.
Yeah.
And then I get to put my spin on it. And now it's just, once I start using that a lot, it's going to start becoming like the face of the channel, I think. Like, it's just such a unique build, and everybody who sees it just loses their mind in person. I had a guy like walk up to me on the trail. I was a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "I will give you $50,000 right now for that." And I'm like, "That's really nice, but first off, that's way too low." But like, it took me a year to build this, dude. But so what I'm saying is that people react to it. They're like, "I've never seen anything like that. I want it," and so that's one that I think that I have the same reaction to every time I drive it, every time I see it. So that'll stay in the fleet forever, probably.
Cool.
Probably a long way to answer your question.
No, I find that very, very interesting because I thought about that as I'm watching you and other YouTubers, and every time there's a new vehicle introduced, it's like, man, they had to sit there on Facebook Marketplace like the rest of us and waiting for the right one to come up, and then spend their hard-earned dollars to get it, and sure.
Whatever disease Jay Leno has, I've got it too. I want it, but I just don't have the money. So if I had warehouses and I had all that money, for sure I would have. Like, I'm also into more than just off road. I'm just right now. I'm in a phase of my life where if I'm going to invest money in a vehicle, it has to be off road, just because it's like what I do for a living.
Sure.
But like, I want a '69 Datsun Roadster. I want a. I really love like the late 70s, early 80s Porsche 911s.
Sure.
Even the 60s, like the 60s Porsche 911s are incredible. So like a Speedster. There's like all these cars that I absolutely love, but I'm still many years of success away from being able to collect cars on top of the trucks that I buy.
But we can all scroll through Marketplace looking at them, even though we can't afford them. It's funny. The young guys don't understand that we used to do the same thing with the classified ads when I was 18 or 19, but there was no pictures. Like, you just had to read the description and visualize,
Absolutely. That's so funny.
Right? So, speaking of over the years, have you seen, especially in your part of the country, kind of the evolution of builds and suspensions and the way things are being built today compared to 20 years ago? Around these parts 20 years ago, I mean, put the biggest leaf springs you can, jack it to Jesus, 44s on there, and
dude, that should be the name of your podcast, by the way. Jacket to Jesus is fantastic.
And but that was it, and nobody was thinking about center of gravity and lowering it down. And now we've kind of gone full circle the other way.
I think it's coming back around though. Dude, life is just full of pendulum moments, and we go from being way too tall to being way too short, and now I think there is a benefit to being tall is all heck. I mean, and there's the farther you stay away from rocks, the less you get hung up. My Samurai is a great example of that. If I'm building something like my Tacoma, where like not only can you not afford to flip it because it's like totaled at that point, but it's like just the last thing you want to flip in. That I want to always keep that low, and even with the portals that I'm putting on it, I'm going to do everything I can to keep it low, keep it squatty, low center of gravity. But for like the Samurai, it was like, okay, I'll make it bottom heavy, but I'll make it tall so that I can get over all the rocks, because that's how everybody used to build everything. And so you could just work your way over just insane rock sections, and you'd probably see a lot more people flipping back then. But that was how everything was built. The evolution. I didn't cut you off on your question, did I?
Nope, that was
okay.
It. Yeah.
But yeah, the evolution over the last I've just seen a lot of phases.
But you think it's somewhat of a history repeats itself, that we go in cycles with it?
I'm not the only one who's building things that are a little bit taller again.
Okay.
I'm starting to see other people doing the same thing, because the more you rock crawl and then the more things you build, the more you start to just see like there's not a one size fits all. If you have a specific kind of off-road you like to do the most, you should build it for that. If you live in Sand Hollow and you like going up the steepest hills you can find, you should probably be low and squatty. But if you like going on the Rubicon, or like there's some killer rock gardeny stuff up where I live, like Reeder Foothills and all this, you want to be away from the rocks. When you keep yourself low, I mean, it looks really cool and it works great on steep stuff, but it's just a slog to get through all of the big pointy rocks. So, you know, it's tough to build something that's good at everything. That is kind of like the both worlds. One thing though, sidebar, that I've noticed on the last 20 years, the quality of builds. Like, we're spoiled here in America when it comes to build quality. Do you know how many people have plasma tables in their garage?
That's a great point.
Dude, like the kind of technology we have access to now. I mean, when I first started, there was no one who had press brakes, you know, and then swag comes along. They make an affordable one. You can put it in a Harbor Freight. And now, like, it's a very common tool to see in fabricators' shops. It's a press brake. And there's just so many examples of that. You know, plasma cutters. When I was in high school, I remember us talking about plasma cutters like it's just alien technology from the future, you know? And it was like, would it like cut your finger out? You know, like we just didn't know. It's just like all this just weird stuff that we would just talk about in a shop class. And now, I mean, you can get a plasma cutter for like $400 on Amazon, probably cheaper.
Well, even 20-something years ago, MIG welders were that way. Not everybody had a MIG welder in their garage.
There's still a lot of stick welders. Yep.
So,
yeah, now with multi-process, and I mean, there's never been more TIG welders out there, and there's guys in their garage that don't even weld for a living that are just laying down dimes. Like we have like the most skilled hobbyists of all time here. Like, there's so many people that are like engineers or something, and they're like doing a side hustle, being able to like throw together like chassis and stuff for their friends. Like, it's really cool to watch all that.
That's funny you say that. We were talking about that the other day. When you start looking at people that don't do this professionally, that it's a hobby, guys that you're in the woods with, you know, when we're in the woods, we all just kind of look like a bunch of old boys in the woods. But then when you start finding out what people do for a living, you're an engineer for what?
Yeah.
You're a rocket scientist?
Oh, like, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. I've always been social. I make fast friends on the trail, and I always love to hear people's stories and where they're from. And so, and the overland space especially, it's like really like tech heavy, I feel like. Or people,
I can see that.
I've met people that work at NASA that are like into overland. Like, it's crazy the level of successful people. Oh, super douchey name drop, so excuse me. My friend Barry Bonds, Barry Bonds, the baseball player, is way into overlanding.
What?
Yeah. I ran into him at Expo, and he's like said hi to me, and I was like, I'm looking around like no one knows this is Barry Bonds. And so me and him have lunch at Overland Expo, and while we're sitting there talking, we have like, for some reason, I am like super popular at overland events. It's just insane. And so, like, as we're talking and having lunch, maybe 7 or 8 different groups of people come over to have their picture taken with me and that kind of thing. Super flattering. And Barry's like, dude, out here, nobody recognizes me, and you're the superstar. You know what I mean? It's so crazy. Like,
maybe he enjoys that aspect of it.
He does. Yeah. He told me. So he goes to most of the expos because he could just blend in. It's not his people, so he can just like be a normal person at a show.
Wow.
It's super cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Huh. So again, name drop. It's like the only famous person I know, but he's such a great example of like, you never know who's watching. And you know, just back to your point of, it just looks like a bunch of regular people in the woods, but then when you start to hear people's backstories, it's like, if you saw him and you didn't know baseball, you'd never know that he's like Hall of Fame level, one of the greatest of all time. And he's just out there in his Bronco Raptor having fun with everybody else.
That's what I was going to ask. Bronco Raptor. Okay.
Yeah, he had one of the new Defenders first, and he liked it. But whenever they announced the Bronco Raptor, he's like, hell yeah. So he got rid of his Defender and got the Bronco Raptor, and he loves that thing. The last 2 years, we've been talking about me taking him out on the Rubicon, but he just wants to ride with me just so he can see what it's like. And we'll see. I still want to try to talk him into taking that Bronco Raptor out there. I think he'd do pretty good on the Rubicon, but
that'd be cool.
Who knows?
That'd be cool. So, Nate, you're 200-something videos into this now on your channel.
Jeez, am I really?
Yeah. I've probably looked at the analytics more lately than you have.
Oh, you probably have.
200-something videos closing in, if it's not happening today, maybe tomorrow, on 50 million combined views, total views.
Dude, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
No joke. Like, I know how many subscribers-ish I have.
Yeah.
50 million? Wow.
It's wild, huh?
That is wild.
Do you feel like understanding YouTube, understanding which ones are going to be a hit with your fan base? I was talking to Mike Pfeiffer from Last Light in Defense earlier this week, and he said, I've got a pretty good gut feeling now when I make a video which ones are going to take off.
Yep.
Do you feel like you're similar to that?
Definitely. Yeah. There's multiple ways to go about YouTube. Some people are so lucky in the fact that they don't have to think about this. They film it all with their phone. They're just naturally super charismatic. They're not even worried about what people think, and they just blow up.
Yeah.
But that is a rare story. Most people you watch on YouTube are looking at the analytics. They are trying to figure out what their audience wants, especially if you want to try to make a living at it or you want to, make money at it. Then you have to focus on that stuff sometimes. Most of the time, I'm always just trying to be better. And then I occasionally look back and I'm like, okay, how did this video do? Where am I losing people? Because that audience retention graph that you get on our side is really important because it tells you what the viewers actually want to see. And with me, I put a lot of different elements into my videos, and if I'm seeing over and over, it's like, oh, when I do these slow-mo sequences, I'm just losing a bunch of people. And so it's I guess it's just for me, I think it's cool. So then I better cut that out and just see how much better things are. And so as you do that, and as it'll show you the average age range of the people watching you and all this other stuff, and you start to visualize an avatar of who is watching you, you do start to get a lot better at you just know, oh, this is a banger thumbnail, and this is a topic that I think is really popular right now. Sometimes you just know. Most of the time, I'm pretty close these days. I've got a pretty good idea of what people want to see. But there's also just the surprises. Sometimes you'll put something together quick. You're I know some people are going to be interested in this, but, whatever. The best example for me is when I quit my job, I made a YouTube video, and it was going to be a temporary YouTube video. I was like, this is going to be just for the people that have been following me since Bleep and Jeep, and I just wanted to make something personal. And so I made this video, and it exploded, and I couldn't believe it. And I would have never predicted that people would be... Well, first off, it's surprising that people want to watch what I'm up to in my garage. So it's you start there. You start with 0 subscribers. You start is anyone even going to be interested? And then you work your way up to all right, I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to show how crazy busy I am to try to do this, and me quitting my job and me and my plumbing truck, and make it's this vulnerable thing. And again, I thought I was going to just have it up for a week or two and just delete it. It was just going to be for my people who really followed me. And that I could not believe how big that video got. And it really resonated with people. That's the one that people bring up the most. If I'm on the trail and someone's dude, you really inspired me because I hated my job. And so I found another, they didn't quit and go do YouTube, but they were just seeing you take a gamble like that made me decide that I'm going to go pursue something better because I was just miserable.
It's the story.
It's the story. And that's what I'm focused on a lot more now. Before I moved to this new place that I live in now, I didn't share a lot of my personal life. And now that I'm in this new place in my life, I'm looking at 40 next year, I know that there's just a certain level of negativity you're going to get no matter what you put on there. So that's what scares you about making yourself vulnerable. But I want to make myself more vulnerable. My last video, I shot a deer. I was going to originally show the hunt and everything, but I was like, I don't know what that would do. But I did show, I talked while I was out there hunting, looking for the deer. I showed a little clip of me and the kids processing. I want to start bringing people more in on my personal life. while still doing all the same old stuff, building cool stuff in the garage and having fun.
But that's got to be an interesting balance, bringing the personal life in, bringing the wife and kids in, while maintaining some semblance of privacy in that, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to decide on when to film and when to not, because I'm not going to film everything. You know, there's certain things in your life, you know. Yeah, and I know like my dad had a stroke, and it's been really hard on us. And I know that if I like filmed some of that and what it's like to go through that, it would probably really resonate with people, and it would probably get me a whole bunch of like views. But like there's certain things that I'm just keeping that, you know, that's just other stuff going on in the back burner of my life. But there's other things like me teaching my kids and me having my kids in the video, like riding in a vehicle for the first time, or as I'm going to start bringing my kids into the shop, like you're going to start seeing them learning how to weld. And so like there's other parts of my life that I'm comfortable with because it's an important part of my life. And, you know, I want people to see that I'm a person just like they are.
There you go.
You know? So it's hard to figure out when to film and when to not. But right now that's about my comfort. So,
yeah. Yet, you know, it's funny you're talking about the kids and the involvement. It's not, and its lifestyle is in the name of your channel, obviously, but that's what this is, right? You are on kind of 24/7 to an extent.
yeah.
I would assume every time you pick your phone up, it's buzzing with something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's worse for me than a lot of other overland YouTubers that I like, my friends and stuff, because of course they have people reaching out to them too. But when people see that you know stuff and then they have problems, they want to reach out. And at first I was like responding to everybody for a long time. Brad Trail Recon was this way too. Like we felt so appreciative that people wanted our opinion on something.
Okay.
You know?
Yep.
But then it gets to a point where it's insurmountable. I mean, I could spend all week just answering questions and
Just technical questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just DMs, people want advice on their build, or people that have a problem with fill in the blank vehicle, or people trying to decide on what vehicle to buy. I mean, you name it. Or people that want clarity on a video I did 4 years ago, you know? And so at some point you just have to, I'm beyond that point now where it's like people want more content. And so like I have to trim the fat somewhere in order to get enough time to make more content. And so yeah, I have a lot of folks reaching out, and I still spend a lot of time answering people's questions and trying to be in the comments and all that stuff, because again, I'm just like Brad with Trail Recon. Like we're both so humbled that people want to interact with us and talk, you know.
But you're not going to go look up torque specs for somebody anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Google works for them too. I'm just kidding.
What about, you were talking about, it's funny, you used the word avatar earlier when describing kind of your demographic. So you've kind of created maybe this image in your head of what your viewer looks like and you know what demographics they fit into. And you've got to, I assume you're thinking about making content for that. Then you've got something like the Tacoma, where you're doing an RCLT kit and you're doing RCVs, and before you know it, you've got, you know, $20,000 tied up in suspension before portals.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like you have to be cognizant of this balance between maybe what's affordable for most folks versus what you're sinking into something?
Oh, definitely. Well, and that also, I'm not rich. So like, just full disclosure, I mean, like a channel my size, like I make enough money that I can, I make enough money, and I've been good enough before YouTube that I don't have so many bills and whatnot.
Sure.
And I'm good enough on the business end of this where I have enough income streams behind the scenes that I'm able to do what I do, buy good deals on vehicles whenever I need to, and all the other stuff. But I also I use my audience, like the numbers and all this stuff, as leverage to try and get good deals on parts, or work with brands in a way that it's like actually a paid sponsorship. And so it's just this like mess of trying to figure out how to put all those pieces together. And the balance for me is, honestly, I'm more interested in the old stuff. What happened was we started the channel. I was growing stuff, just building stuff that I wanted to build. But then I took some time and I started looking at like, what are people interested in? And there was a lot of people interested in like Gladiators and Tacomas and all this. And I've never bought a new vehicle in my life. But I was like, because of the way that tax laws and stuff are written right now, I mean, if you're in my shoes and or in your shoes, anybody watching this, start a YouTube channel, get a business license, and if it's your hobby, make YouTube videos about your hobby and write off your hobby. Like, it's completely legal. Save some taxes, because me being able to go out and buy these new vehicles made for giant write-offs, right?
Sure.
And then I'm able to try to leverage everything I can to get the parts I need to build stuff and then make content that people are interested in. And so those two vehicles and those builds were they were not normal for me. What happened with the Tacoma was I pre-ordered the Bronco, and it was going to take so long to get that I was like, well, I've been wanting to build an IFS anything. And the Tacoma is like, the third gen Tacoma, I have always, since it came out, was like, this is one of the best looking trucks I've ever seen. I love the looks of the third gen Tacoma personally. And so instead of just waiting to get the Bronco, I was like, I'm going to go build a Tacoma instead. So we went down, we found a good deal on a Tacoma, bought it. And then I just started reaching out to companies, and I'm lucky in the fact that I have this rare Tacoma, because most people would never put that kind of money into a Toyota Tacoma. To get it to the level that my Tacoma's at takes an insane amount of money. But luckily, it's not a lot of my money. I'm able to do everything I can to leverage companies to where I can get the parts that I need to build something cool, one of a kind. And then I get to the point where I'm at now, where it's so good at everything, I don't even know if I can get rid of it. And now that I've got portals, that's something I bought, but I had to sell the Land Cruiser to afford them. So behind the scenes, like, I'm not rich. I'm just like trying to juggle enough pieces around that I can afford to continue to build things out. So the long way around answering your question is, most of the time I like to build stuff that's affordable and cool and something that's attainable. But sometimes, like with the Tacoma, my goal from the beginning was like, I want to build the best Tacoma. Like, I'm in a position where I could do like almost a no limit budget, like no budget build on it. And so I'm going to do everything I can over a few years to just build the most ridiculous, craziest Tacoma. And it'll be relatable to Tacoma owners, just because they'll be able to see different things along the way that they might be able to incorporate into their
bits
own
and pieces,
thing.
right? They may not do everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then I had how much it takes to make a Tacoma as capable is kind of a good lesson for people that are like me, that aren't brand loyalists. Toyota people are always going to buy Toyotas. Jeep people are always going to buy Jeeps. But there's a bunch of us that could go either way. And that's one thing that I've gotten asked a lot, because I had a 2021 Toyota Tacoma and a 2021 Jeep Gladiator, and I had a lot of seat time in both. And if anybody who asks me which one would you get, Gladiator all day long. I do like the Tacoma a lot. I think the IFS system, if you have the money to get it to where I have mine, the performance of the IFS is insane. It is so good off-road. It is so good on-road. It drives like a Camry on 40s. It's insane. Like, it is remarkable. But the amount of time and effort and what it takes to get to that level is just bananas. If you want something that you can just buy, throw a set of 39s on with a 3.5-inch lift, nothing even comes close to the Gladiator. Factory front and rear lockers. The stereo is amazing. Like, it's so good out of the box. We just did the Rubicon on my wife's Gladiator. It was like a family trip. I didn't film it or anything. We just wanted to take the family to the Rubicon, and all my stuff's broken. It's either been hit by elks or whatever. And so we took her Gladiator, and it's not what I built it for, but I was like, on paper, it should do fine. And it did amazing. And it's not that modded.
Right.
So, yeah, they're both great. But it's just kind of, it's fun that I'm in a position where I can like show people how much work it is to go either way.
That's a good answer. You mentioned the portals, and portals are obviously a kind of a hot topic once again in the off-road scene. And what is your opinion on kind of over the next 5 years? So let's say I had Dimitri from Stellar Built On, and we were talking about this, and he said it's really a cost perspective. $20,000. I mean, that's just not attainable for most folks to go out and buy a set of portals. But even if we could get it down to half of that, then you start doing the math and saying, well, maybe I don't have to buy a set of gears because there's already reduction in the portals. It starts looking a lot more appealing.
Yeah.
We've got the guys here in just a couple of weeks tune in from Portal Pros that are trying to make portals for the people.
Yep. I've had long conversations on the lake bed with them at King of the Hammers.
There you go.
We met and hung out. They're good dudes.
So do you think we're finally going to a point that the manufacturing technology is there that we can get these prices down and maybe no?
No, if I think that I'm not trying to get political at all, so I'm not going to. But I think that when you look at the fact that we're like at the end of the longest economic expansion in U.S. history, we're about to go through some sort of, we're currently going into some sort of, I don't want to say depression, but people are not going to be spending money the way they were the last 5 or 10 years. And the last 10 years is when the off-road scene has just absolutely exploded. Just massive, massive growth. And even more so since COVID.
Yeah, the COVID bump was huge.
This bubble is not going to last very long, and I would say we're already on the other side of it. So people dropping that kind of coin, I do not think is going to be a thing. That said, what I have learned since doing this, and especially in the overland space, you go to Overland Expo, you realize like, wow, there is a lot of wealth in this country. So even if you're like me and you grew up, we were in a poor town in Oklahoma, did not have a lot of money. That's a lot of people's experience in this country. So it's hard to imagine that there's people that have 20 grand laying around to buy portals, but there are a lot of people with 20 grand laying around to buy portals. So I'm torn on this. I could see where on one side, I think that we're about to go through a period in this country where we're not going to have that much money available to go spend like that. But at the same time, there's so much money in off-road that it didn't used to be. When I first started wheeling, it was beat up raisin Toyota like mini trucks and like CJs, Samurais, and like a lot of square bodies. It was all like cheap stuff that you built yourself.
Right.
And then the JK came out and they made wheeling comfortable. And then after that, it all changed. And then once you got around like that 2014, 2015, 2016 time period, manufacturers started saying like, hey, there's this like emerging group of like people with money that are getting into off-road. And then they started like marketing the Bronco towards us. They came out with the Gladiator, like all these new products. Even the Chevy Colorado's got front and rear lockers, low T-case gears, diesel options. We're officially like a group with a little bit of weight. So I don't know. So what I'm saying is that I'm torn. On one hand, I definitely see where we're going to be spending less money as a group because we're all going to feel it. But I am surprised at the amount of wealth that is in this country, even during some sort of a depression, right? So it's hard to say. I think that the portal thing could take off. Because the performance gains are huge. But I just don't know how many average people could afford more than a Volvo portals or Hummer portals or something like that. So my portal video that I'm going to do next month, in November sometime, I'm going to do a portal video, and I'm going to take a set of 74 weld. We're going to take them apart. We're going to compare them to Unimog portals. We're going to compare those to Portal Pro portals. I'm going to talk about the costs involved. I'm going to talk about TRE portals, which is like a Malaysian company. I'm going to talk about all the different portal options from the most expensive to the least expensive. And then people will have the information all in one place where it's like, who doesn't want portals? But then you can kind of look at it and say, well, I have the skill set where I could do Hummer portals with, some of the tooling that I have. I could save a boatload of money. Or it's like, well, I don't have the skill set for that, but if I save up long enough, I could just buy the 74 welds and be done with it. But either way, you'll have the information there.
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a good video.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. So right now, it's just finding more examples of portals that I can try to take apart in the shop. I'm trying to find somebody with some werewolf portals that will let me pull one apart in the shop so I can show exactly, because like there's a lot of questions that I can't get answers to, like what grade is the hardware holding together a werewolf portal? Is it cast? It looks like it's cast, not billet. what kind of bearings does it have? Are these like European specific branded stuff? Or are these Timken bearings where I can go down and get them at O'Reilly? Because you basically are adding 4 transfer cases on your vehicle. Like, there's going to be parts that are going to wear out, and there's things that you're going to have to think about. So you should think about it now instead of thinking about it when you're like 1,000 miles from home on an off-road trip. Because if there's a rare part in these werewolf portals and you think werewolves are the ones for you, you should buy 2 of whatever you're worried about so you have one on hand.
All right. So James, buddy James, if you're watching and you want Nate to tear down your werewolf portal, reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, or at least somebody who could give me some of those answers, I guess. Then we could move forward on that.
Nate, do you spend time in the comment section? And has that changed over time? Especially with the negative stuff. Do you even sweat it anymore?
It goes in waves.
Okay.
What I've noticed, dude, having a YouTube channel is a mental health exercise. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you listen to big podcasts like, Joe Rogan's or any of that, like, you'll hear people come on like Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you'll hear people who are literally some of the smartest people in the world, and the comments bother them. So it is a completely human thing to see people. Well, first off, it's a human thing to be outside of it, see someone get criticized online and be like, why do they even care? That's a human thing because you're not in it. And then it's a very human thing that once you're in it, realize, like, oh, that's right. It sucks really bad when someone like criticizes something you can't change, or, it's easy to get frustrated. For me, it's one of those things you just always get better at. The first year, the first like 6 months, I didn't even have negative comments. People were like hyped on the content they were finding and whatnot. And then it's like, once you cross a threshold where you get big enough, people
like
want to shoot you down. Yeah. People want to shoot you down because you're doing well. And there must be some sort of like innate human thing. I don't know where this comes from. It might be like a jealousy thing. I have no idea. But there's if I think that it might be a misery thing too. In any case, the first like couple years it was tough, and I would like comment back shitty because people were being shitty to me because it just couldn't help myself. It's like, I'm a grown man, and like, especially when they were being unfair. But what I realized is like, there is nothing. You can dunk on someone and make them look terrible, and you look terrible too. Like, that's just the reality.
Oh, sure.
And so I've talked to a lot of my YouTube friends. If I see them dunk on, I'll just be like, hey man, like, screenshot this, like, calm down, like, look at it a month later, and I promise you're going to look at it through a different, like, a completely non-emotional lens. You're going to be like, oh, I regret saying anything back. So what I do usually is I'll just hide them from the channel. If someone is being really crappy, I take constructive criticism all the time, and I'll leave that up there. But there's a lot of criticism that's not constructive. It's like, dude, people, I don't want to bring the conversation down. I've literally had like death threats.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Where someone said, I wouldn't respond to that. This guy was, hopefully you don't have to cut this. We'll see. I'm going to just say exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I was about to go to Mexico, and the night before I leave, this guy had like watched one of my videos and had like commented like 6 or 7 times, and then the last one was like, this is so graphic, but he said, you'll take me serious when I'm like bashing your brains out of your skull, basically mad that I'm not responding. And I'm like, I wake up to this. And so we click on his profile, his YouTube profile, and it was like really wild videos on his channel where it was like clearly someone who's mentally unstable.
Sure.
And this was at a time when people were starting to find where I live and showing up at my house. So we had a moment where it was like, do I have to cancel this Mexico trip? Because I don't want someone to show up at my house and I'm not there. It's just my wife and kids, And so we reported it. We, sent it to YouTube and all this stuff. And that's the sad thing about this is like, if anybody with an internet connection has access to you, right? But it doesn't really bother me anymore. That's just like, I empathize with people that get online. I watch YouTube all the time. I've never left a negative comment on someone's YouTube channel. I can't even wrap my head around doing that. If it's something I don't like, I just don't watch it. So when I see someone who is like saying your kids are ugly or eyes are too close together. At first, when I started YouTube, I was slurring my words still because I had that brain injury. And I'd have people that would be like, this guy's pilled up, listen to him, like, that kind of stuff. And now I look at it I don't take it that personal because it's like, dude, that person is so miserable. So like, I think that the reason that I don't leave negative comments and stuff on other people's channels is because I'm like, I'm pretty happy. Right. Like, I don't have like pain that I have to like just ooze out onto random people on the internet, So the reason that I can't wrap my head around it is because I'm not in the same situation as them. So like, it sounds douchey to say, but I really like genuinely feel sorry for someone that is in that situation. So I have a healthier way of looking at negative comments now than I used to, and you'll never see me respond to. Sometimes people will be so ridiculous that I'll respond in a funny way. Like I'm clearly like
they're trolling you, and
it's yes, and it's not it's not in a way that I'm done. It's just like, dude, you cannot be serious. Like, I had a guy that was telling me how much better his Silverado would be in the snow than my Tacoma and all this stuff. And the way he did it was so ridiculous. I was like, you know what? I think this is a challenge. And so I screenshotted it, put it on social media. I was like, everybody go on my YouTube comments and tell this guy to meet up with me. Let's do a video. Because he's got these siped Toyos on his Silverado, and it's just going to decimate. Like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, or I don't know how to snow wheel. Like, let's do that. And so I reached out to the guy and was like, listen, I would love to make a video with you. I promise you're going to have a fun time. The only thing that'll be uncomfortable is when we start the video, I have to read back what you said to you. And he kept saying he was going to meet up with me, and he never did. But it's like, that's one of the rare examples where like I will push back, but I totally did it in like a fun way. People they thought it was going to be awesome, and it just never really manifested itself.
It's like people getting pumped for a fight after high school.
Oh, dude. Like, yeah, exactly. Because it was like, dude, I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I snow wheel a lot. And when I tell you that these are the best tires that I've used, it's not because I'm like being brands like specific or anything. Like I'm using what I think is the best. So I made a video about it. And then the guy just felt like he had to talk down to me. I was like, dude, let's do this. This would be so fun. Yeah. And I think also a lot of people make negative comments not even realizing that they sound negative. Like, communication is really hard via text.
Sure.
There's no context. Yep. And some of us just come off abrasive. And you don't even know it. So like, I try to give people a certain amount of wiggle room in the fact that like, they might not even realize that they might be the world's biggest fan of mine, and they just put a couple of words in the wrong place, and then you could read it completely wrong and out of context. So there's got to be room for that.
What's your thoughts? You had your start with Bleep and Jeep. What's your thoughts nowadays on kind of collaboration versus looking at it as competition with different YouTube channels? Because obviously there is it's like two guys, having gas stations across the street from each other. You're going after the same customers.
Yeah.
But it seems like now we see more of a collaborative movement among different channels.
Yeah. The reality is you are in competition, but there's no winner. So and there's some poisonous relationships between YouTubers behind the scenes, and there's like jealousy, and especially if you might know more than the other guy and be a better authority, but they're better at marketing or whatever, But the reality is, even though you're in competition with them, it doesn't mean you don't have to be friends, or you can't be friends. You know what I mean? It's I think Matt from Matt's Off-Road Recovery has proved that it's so much more valuable to reach out to the other people around you and like lift each other up and have fun together than it is to try and compete. Because I think you're technically competing, but you're not really competing, because there's
indirect.
What is it? I mean, we're not quite to 8 billion people in the world, but
right,
we're up there. And when you look at the biggest YouTube, the biggest off-road YouTube channels, nowhere near 1 billion. You know what I mean? Like subscribers. So it's like there's plenty of eyeballs out there, and so it doesn't need to be as competitive as it feels. And another thing too is it kind of takes a certain personality to even like want to do this and put yourself out there. And so there's like I have noticed a certain like competitive part of people's personalities that are in this industry And so it is kind of natural to see people kind of butt heads here and there, unfortunately. But
Well, sometimes that makes for good content.
that's true too. Everybody loves a rivalry, right?
So, looking back now, 5 years in, as we wrap this up, is there a lesson that if you could go back to 34-year-old Nate and tell him about this ride you're about to go on that you'd like to tell?
Not really. I'm glad that everything happened the way it did. I'm glad I was scared. I think it was healthy to be concerned about it, because now there's more people making like money on YouTube, and it's becoming more acceptable to be a quote unquote influencer. As much as I hate that term, it's in those days it was like you would hear like big names doing it, but it didn't seem like it was something that was like accessible to regular people,
Like a viable profession. Yeah.
So when I had a plumbing retirement party whenever I quit plumbing, and had all my friends go, and they're all close friends, but I know that they thought I was crazy for leaving such a great job. And we were one of the highest paid trades,
Yeah.
and I worked so hard to get where I was. But I bet now they're looking at what I'm doing and they're just like, well, I know, I don't bet. I know. It means a lot to have close friends of mine, people that I've known like since high school. They're just like, tell you they're proud of you,
That's cool.
like really. And so if I go back and give myself any advice, I don't think I wouldn't want to spoil the ride. It's super fun. The highs and lows, they're all important. And I'm just glad that I have a supportive wife that had the faith, just unwavering faith. I can't believe how confident she was that I was going to pull it off. I was not that confident. I was like, well, I got a good plan B. That was my attitude. I was like, we're going to give it a shot. But she, like, from the very, like, just, I've never seen her more confident about anything. But without her support, I wouldn't have tried. That's for sure. So maybe if I had to give myself some advice, it'd be listen to your wife and thank her.
I think that's advice we should all heed. Yeah. That normally works out pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Nate, thank you for being here, taking the time. You've had a busy week. I know he's been in the woods filming some stuff and going nonstop, and we're hoping this weather pushes out and you can go home tomorrow.
This is the first podcast I've done in a hurricane, just for the record. Yeah, in Tennessee.
Well, I wish you luck with, especially with the new venture ideas, with the repair and recovery and shop. That's exciting.
Yeah, hopefully we can do that sooner than later. I think people would dig that kind of content.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Cool. Thank you.